I would love to, but I'm going to do you one better than that. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to summarize a conversation that we've been having over many, many days, but I kind of revisited it in a new thread just for you, so that you get an understanding of kind of how I think about it, because this has been an evolution for me that has been informed by psychology, neurolinguistic programming, quantum physics, spirituality. But yeah, let me see if I can get her to talk.
Sure. Here's something I pressed fully. I said, the big question isn't just does someone else's energy enter me during sex, but where does the boundary between ourselves and others actually end? Because intimacy clearly changes us. We can absorb habits, mannerisms, desires, emotional patterns, and even aspects of identity from the people we become close with. Spiritual traditions might call that energetic exchange. Psychology might call it internalization or attachment. Neuroscience might describe learning or neural association. And I said, maybe all three are describing different angles of that same strange fact. Human beings aren't entirely sealed off islands.
Thank you very much. So when we talk about bonding, what do we need to be clear about? Because there's this thing about, men release vasopressin, or is that right? And women release oxytocin. We all bond in different ways, right? Depending on ourselves.
Yes, exactly. Oxytocin and vasopressin show up in everyone, not just one sex or the other. The differences are more about patterns, receptor sensitivity, context, and, your attachment style, your history, stress levels. So bonding isn't a simple male versus female split. It's a complex mix of biology and lived experience. And even without sex involved, people can form powerful attachments through closeness, shared vulnerability, care, and really consistent attention.
And surely there's something from an NLP perspective. I'm going to bring NLP in, because we talk in NLP about, the power of repetitious statements, whether you want to call that an affirmation or a confirmation to yourself. We know that there is links between pressure points on our body. As an NLP practitioner, I'm going to use that with you to help you, harness a good feeling. I'm going to use different tools to help you leave feelings that are not comfortable or not useful for you. So during Smex, for example, if I was to hold eye contact, prolonged eye contact with somebody, from an NLP point of view, we would say that you kind of could be forcing a bond there. Do you know what I mean?
One sec. Yes, I do know what you mean, and I think it's a really interesting question. I would be careful with forcing a bond, but yeah, in NLP terms, during sex, things like sustained eye contact, touch, emotional intensity, they're all co-occurring signals. And if repeated, those can act like anchors. So your brain links that person with safety, excitement, or affection, depending on the person's own history and expectations. But it's not a switch you can reliably flip in another person, and it's very dependent on the other person.
It is.
Maybe,
It is. I just want to interrupt you there, because you're absolutely right.
yeah.
However, for most of the population, for example, if I was to meet them from an NLP perspective and I was to use their first name, and not an overly, amount of times, but let's say between 3 to 7 times in the first 3 minutes, we know from an NLP perspective that tricks our brain into thinking that person knows us better than they actually do, because there is a familiarity kind of cheat trick switch in our brains that you can manipulate. Same with holding eye contact, shaking hands with people. There are certain things that we can do that we can trigger in other people. We know this to be true. So why not in Smacks?
Let me see. I think that key difference is between influence versus determining. I think those behaviors can influence how someone feels in an interaction, sure. But I don't think they reliably determine attachment.
I don't think they do either. Sorry to interrupt you again, but I think
Yeah,
because
it's okay.
because we're talking about humans, and you know, when it comes to somebody that you I don't know, you want a job from, right? You might want to influence them, of course. You might want to let me turn the kettle off. You might want to influence them. You might want to use your presence to do that, and you might try some NLP tricks. It's a stressful situation, so there is heightened emotions. I just wonder if it's actually more easy to use some NLP tricks during Smex because of the nature of the emotional state. Like most people obviously are going to be sleeping with somebody that they find aesthetically attractive. There are already going to be hormones rushing around. There's already going to be a natural kind of bonding wish happening intellectually and from a biological perspective. Now, doesn't that just make NLP techniques a little bit more effective?
Let me see. That's a very thoughtful hypothesis. I think you're asking something a bit different. Like, does the emotional intensity of sex make people more susceptible to forming strong associations? And I'd say plausibly, yes. Emotionally intense experiences tend to be more memorable. So pairing someone's name, say, or their gaze with feelings of closeness can create strong anchors. But whether that becomes manipulation or genuine bonding depends on consent, mutuality, and I would say each person's attachment style.
I totally agree. I totally agree. But it's actually a little bit wild because you might not know you're doing this, and it might be from a very good place. But let's say that you were in Congress with your partner and you were staring deeply into their eyes whilst also squeezing their earlobe and telling them how amazing they are as a human being. Would that not be anchoring? Would that not be positive affirmations?
Let me see. Yes, there are a couple of different concepts there. So if during sex you look into someone's eyes, say, and affirm them genuinely, you are pairing experiences together. In NLP language, you might call that anchoring if it's done consistently. But the ethics hinge on intention. Is it mutual and affectionate, or is someone deliberately trying to condition the other?
I hear you. We're going to assume that we're all, healthy human beings and not sociopaths, and we want to bond with our partners in healthy ways. And the original question I had was like my perspective of energy transfer and bonding. From our conversations, can you summarize what you think I think in like 25 seconds?
Let me see. I think you're saying, I'm not trying to prove spiritual energy transfer as literal. I'm exploring whether different frameworks, biology, psychology, NLP, spirituality, are different languages for a shared phenomenon about how intimacy shapes us. And you're wondering if repeated words, touch, eye contact, if those might become powerful, healthy anchors for bonding. Not mystical by default, but combining biology, emotion, attention, and meaning. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.